everybody. Welcome to the Good Evening Kitties podcast, the Tales from the Crypt review. My name is Melissa, your ghostess with the mostest, and today's episode is Season 2, Episode 4, Til Death. So before we get started, I did see this great article on Bloody Disgusting I wanted to share with you guys. It came out November 6th, so like 6 days ago. Saw this, and I want to talk about it real quick. It's on Bloody Disgusting. It's by John Squires. And basically what's going on is the effects artist Kevin Yager is selling the Tales from the Crypt props, including the baby Crypt Keeper, which is from an episode later in this season called Lower Birth, which will be fun to get to. But basically this guy, Kevin Yager, is a designer and executor of the Chucky doll for Child's Play, and he also designed the Crypt Keeper, and is also involved in many other horror movie and horror-related things. So he decided to open up some of his archives and sell some of the artifacts from it. And so he added a bunch of the Tales from the Crypt props from some of the shows to his shop, including the Crypt Keeper baby from Lower Birth, or his mechanical understructure. He also included the two-faced head from the same episode, as well as John Lovett's face from the episode from Top Billing. So I'm taking a look here on the website, and if you want to check it out, like I said, it's on Bloody Disgusting. Just look up, it's really easy to find, look up props for Tales from the Crypt or something, and he's selling them. So yeah, he's got some of the pictures here, and the mechanical Crypt Keeper baby understructure is pretty intense. The fact that it's like the understructure without all the skin and props and everything else they had from the actual episode. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So yeah, he's selling that one. The original, apparently according to the mechanical part of the baby, the original foam latex skin over time rotted away. So this is basically what they have since it's been so long since they used it. They also have part of the face, the two-man face from the episode Lower Birth. They have that one up for sale. That's pretty cool. And then they had Vincent Schiavelli's head that was used from Tales from the Crypt. That's pretty neat. That one still looks pretty much like him from the episode Morning Mess, which is season 3, episode 10. So we'll get to that eventually. So that's there. But yeah, so it's kind of neat. They got all these different things on there you could check out. So yeah, if you want to see what those look like, it definitely looks creepier with all the stuff peeled off of them and things like that. But yeah, that's on Bloody Disgusting. Again, the article is by John Squires, and it was put out on November 6, 2017. So now we'll get on to the rest of the episode here. Again, season 2, episode 4, Til Death. So I'm going to go ahead and read a little bit of information off the DVD case about it. It stars Pamela Geen. She was also in Men Seeking Women, among other things. It also stars Aubrey Morris, who is from A Clockwork Orange and My Girl 2, and D.W. Moffat from Traffic and TV's Friday Night Lights. As always, John Kassir does the voice of the Crypt Keeper, and Danny Elfman does the theme song. This episode was directed by Chris Wallace. He also directed The Fly 2 and The Vagrant. So this episode aired on April 24th, 1990. And I'm going to go ahead here and read the description on the box here. It says, "Who do that voodoo? A scumball developer needing dough seeks occult help to land a millionaire bride." So you know that's going to go good, right? I mean, that's usually, that should be a happy ending. So let's go ahead and get into the episode here. So it starts out, you got the Crypt Keeper, he's chilling, hanging out in his crypt, doing his thing. There's a tarantula coming down the side of the crypt. It's pretty cool. He's, staying warm. It's because it's like a tropical episode, so he's got like a heat lamp on and I see like an orange and some other fruits and things. And so he's bringing in the episode here. Now this episode is set in 1948, and so it's a little more of a dated episode, which is kind of cool, when you figure out like what year they're running and things like that. Now this intro, like he goes and shows the book, like he always shows the EC comic covering, and this one's kind of freaky because even in just the EC comic covering, there's like this dead woman and she's all decayed, and she's got her tongue in the guy's ear while he's sleeping, and you're just like, oh, okay, like this is gonna be an interesting episode, so okay, so the episode starts out and it looks like it's somewhere like in the Caribbean, Haiti, Barbados, somewhere around there, and there's a ritual going on right now. There's some skulls and women dancing, and there's a chicken that's unfortunately probably not going to make it, and people are holding up snakes, and they're performing a ritual on a picture of a man's face. The priestess comes out, and her name is Psyche, but she's got a picture of him there, and he's got really slicked, really greasy hair. And they throw his picture in the fire, and then they cut the chicken, and the blood, splatters on to the picture. Well, I guess they do the blood onto the picture first, and then they put it in the fire. So basically, they are not huge fans of him. They're setting something up in the future to see what happened, to do something to him. And so then it kind of kicks to this party, around this in the same area, and he's there, and Logan's there, and he's pouring himself a drink, and he's kind of there, and there's some other people around, richer people. They're having a nice party. Everyone's dressed, black tie kind of thing. And this man who, he's like a doctor, I guess. He, is coming over, he's talking to him, and they're going to be partners in some sort of business thing, and they're drinking some rum, and they're buying something out, and they're wanting to put like a hotel on it, which I'm assuming that the people there who are native do not like it. So across the party, there's a woman that Logan sees that he's interested in, and the doctor, who I guess his name is Freddie, he asks the doctor, who is that woman? Well, he says, who is that incredible creature? Which I'm like, okay. And she's over there, and she's in a nice dress, and she's got her hair all tied back and stuff, and she's just sitting at the bar waiting for a drink. And he says, Freddie tells Logan that that's Margaret Richardson. She's very, very rich. And he's like, Logan's like, Margaret needs someone to show her around the island. He's hoping to maybe make a deal with her or marry her or somehow woo her so that he can get on this fortune she has. And Freddie's like, just to warn you, she's a little high strung, and I wouldn't really mess with her because she can be a lot. And he's like, we'll see. So Logan comes over to talk to her, and right away she's definitely like, she is a little much. So much that Logan's pretty turned off by her right away. She immediately is just complaining.
Thanks so much for the invitation. Oh, mind my hair. It's already suffering from the humidity.
Margaret, may I introduce our host, Mr. Logan Andrews. Margaret, she's just arrived from England.
How do you do?
Better already. Welcome to our island paradise.
Paradise? Oh, hardly. I'd forgotten how hot it gets down here and how humid.
She makes some semi-racist comments about the people who live there on the island or people who are working for them. And she's here from England to visit, and she, of course, is not interested at all in the island. She, again, is complaining about the humidity and the heat and the spicy food, and basically she don't like anything here. And I kind of like the fact that immediately Logan was like, she's horrible. Like, you're completely right. He wasn't at all like, even if she's beautiful, he was just like, no, you're right, she's horrible. So then all of a sudden one of the workers comes in and he says that there's been a problem. And so Logan, who his full name is Logan Andrews, runs out there to take a look to see what's up. And apparently one of the workers had fallen into a big thing of quicksand. They were clearing away some of the brush outside, and apparently there was a spot that they didn't know about, and the guy fell in and just swallowed him up. And so he's trying to tell Mr. Andrews, or Logan, that it's going to be harder for us to work on this property if we don't know what's going on. And he's like, he's trying to tell his boss all of it is quicksand. So I'm guessing this property that they're buying is kind of a dud, or at least right now. I don't know if this was something that was put on them by the other group in the beginning, but it looks like, a lot of his property is probably going to be wasted land because apparently it's all swamp and quicksand. And so Logan's trying to tell the guy, just let's, make it work.
Yeah. All right, tomorrow take the men and start at the other end.
But that's what I've been trying to tell you, boss. The land, all of it, swamp, quicksand.
Then sink pylons, all right?
Boss, you can't do nothing.
I don't care what it takes. Just make it work.
Boss, you can shake me all you want, but I'm being straight with you. If you're going to build here, it's going to take more money than God.
And so Logan is really irritated now, and he throws his head on the ground, and the quicksand eats his hat, and then kind of does like a little burp at the end. You're like, okay, well, I like that hat. And so he comes running back inside, and he gets stopped by Freddie, the doctor. And I notice in Freddie's hand, he's got a drink, and he's got like a horsehair whip. And I was like, is that a whip? I don't know if he's using it on people or if it's some sort of more kinky thing that he likes, even though this is seems like just a regular party. But He's just walking around with a horsehair whip. And I tried looking it up a little bit, and besides just the whip and it being in more of a sexual fashion and things like that, they were actually banned around 1948 in Britain, from what I read online. So this runs around 1948, so I don't know. Maybe there's something to have to do with that. I don't know. So Logan comes back over to Freddy, and he's telling him, you know, this is going to cost millions. You know, I can't believe this property is so bad. I don't know. You know, he doesn't know what to do. So then he remembers Margaret, and he's like, well, maybe if I can get her to kind of, you know, fall for me or get on with that, you know. And so he heads back over to talk to her, and he's kind of like, you know, pouring a drink, and so he's trying to hit on her a little bit, you know. And she's like, really, she's not buying it. She's not interested. Yeah, she's not at all interested. He tries to woo her a little, and she's like, that's nice. I'll see you later. So he heads over to see Psyche, who is kind of like a voodoo priestess. He goes over to like her hut kind of thing. And you know, she's got all kinds of things going on. There are candles and all kinds of fun stuff. And he goes over to talk to her, and immediately her face is the best, because she just has this face like, what? Like, she's like, what do you want? I hate you. And so he comes over to her, and he's like, you know, hey, you know, he's kind of like, hey, we're friends and stuff, right? And she's like, yeah, no. And from what I can tell by the conversation a little bit, I think maybe they were a thing. And that could be one reason why she was so mad in that beginning scene. Because it sounds like to me that like maybe they were a thing, and he tried to bring her to one of their parties or whatever, and then people were looking down on him and looking down on her because she was, you know, of a different race or a different ethnicity, you know, that it didn't work out. And so I guess he just dumped her. And so she, you know, was pretty upset about that. And so she really did have kind of a thing for him, and I think she's pretty upset about all that going down. So I think that's why she did, you know, the intro scene, what she did. So he's basically asking for her help, which is a little ballsy. I don't know if I would, but he was thinking, you know, like maybe you could do something to, you know, strictly business, but if you could do something to help me woo this woman. And she's like, all right, good. And so she heads in the other room, and she's out in like 2 seconds with this little vial. She's like, oh, I got something. You know, she comes right back out. And really, I don't know if I would go ask for her help if this was a woman that I had screwed over in the past, and you knew that she could do these kind of things. But he thinks apparently she'll just help him. And so she gives him this vial, and it's got this little liquid in it, and she's like,
you give her 1 drop, she become your wife. But if you give her 2, she be yours for life.
And then she puts the vial in his pocket and then like seals it with this passionate kiss. And at first I was like, is that part of the curse that she's trying to give him? Or I think it's maybe, now that I know like the conversation and stuff, I think she just is trying to be like, don't forget what you had kind of thing. And he's just like, he's totally disgusted. And she's like, good. Yeah, I'm sure she's like, good, I'm glad I gave you that. Next it cuts to, I think it's like the next night. Margaret's in a different outfit, so I think it might be, and so is he. So it's like the next night, and he's talking to her about the plans for this hotel. I don't know how he got her over there, but they're just hanging out, and they're talking about where the swimming pool is gonna be and looking over blueprints. And he asks if she wants a drink, because apparently what he's also trying to do is like get her to maybe, like he's trying first to maybe see if she just want to be like interested in helping or like monetarily. And she's like, no, it's a bad risk. I don't want to do this. It's bad. And so then he's like, well, you know, let me maybe make you a drink, because, I mean, you made quite an impression on me last night and everyone at the party. And so he's making her a little drink, and he puts in a drop into her drink. And so he gives her the drink, and she goes to take a little sip of it. I don't know. Let's try. I think it's just more rum. And she takes a sip, and it's like immediately hits her. She just gets this look on her face like she's going to throw up. And then she's like, oh my gosh, is it really hot in here? I can't, it's so hot, you know. And he's just like, what? And she looks like, yeah, like she's gonna combust, and she's saying it's so much hotter in here. He's trying to pull her close, like, and he kisses her, which I probably wouldn't do, because she really did look like she was gonna throw up. And so after he kisses her, she gives him like the lightest smack on his cheek, where it was just like, she's like, no, just like a little smack, you know, like his, and then she's like, over my dead body, which I'm like, ooh, girl, don't say that. There's some foreshadowing. So then she leaves, and he's kind of like, well, crap, I thought this was supposed to work. So he goes to bed. So later that night, he's sleeping, not super soundly. He's under his like mosquito net thing, and then she comes, like the door opens, and she comes in this nice like dress-looking thing with her hair all blowing in the wind. And he's like, Margaret? When did you show up here, you know?
Are you feeling all right?
I'm fine. Oh, and don't call me Margaret. Call me Maggie.
And he's like, all right, cool, whatever. I don't care what you call yourself. And so, they make love and all that good stuff. Yeah, then it's the next morning, and it's showing Psyche in her hut. And she has kind of like this model made up of Logan and Margaret together. So they're laying down. I guess it's from them in bed. And there's these little candles and trinkets and things like that. And she's lighting all these candles and kind of saying some words over it. So she's basically, I guess, sealing whatever thing is going on. I'm sure it's like a couple parts into this ritual she has to do. So the next morning, the guy brings in, the Wellington is like a butler. He brings in some drinks, and it's probably not super like late in the day, but apparently you gotta start off early. So they're pouring a drink, and right away, I don't know, Margaret is she's just so like, I don't know, like rich bitch about it. Like, she's immediately like, oh, that servant is so, I don't like him. You need a better class of servant. And she just hates everything about everything in this place. I don't even know how they were able to get her to this island, apparently, or wherever they're at, because she hates it. And he's just like, what? Wellington's fine. His family's worked here for generations. Where else would he go? Like, it doesn't matter. And then she's just cutting them all down. So he's like, So he's like, well, maybe I should seal the deal. And so he offers her some champagne at probably like 9 in the morning. And this time he takes the vial, and it's like a little heart-shaped vial with like this green liquid in it, kind of cute little twist cap on it. And he takes the vial, and for some reason he puts like a whole bunch of drops. Like, he starts to put one in, and then he just puts like 6 or 7, 8 drops in there. And I'm like, that's not what she said. Like, she said if you put 2 in, if you give her 2, she'll be yours for life. Why would you put like 15? For one, it could kill her. And so this whole time still, Psyche's saying her words and lighting the candles, and so it goes back to Logan and Margaret, and they drink their champagne, which is not really super bubbly champagne. And so she takes a sip, and again, immediately she's like, got this look like, oh no, something's, and then she's immediately like, oh, it's so hot. She just gets all hot, but instead of this time, she's hot for him. Well, they go to start to do it again. Okay, right? So they go to start to do it again, and then she starts having these convulsions and screaming. I think the doctor comes running in, and they're trying, the doctor comes running in, and they're trying to figure it out, and she ends up dying, or at least what they think is death. The doctor right away is like, oh, yep, she's dead. And so she gets buried out there. They didn't send her body back home for some reason, and so he heads back over to Psyche's hut, and he's trying, kind of like beating up Psyche and saying, Margaret's dead, you killed her. And it's like, no, technically you put way too many drops in the drink, but okay. And then she's like, I only made it, you gave it to her, you're the one who probably put way too much in, all this stuff. And so he gets super drunk, and he goes by her grave, which again, I don't know why they just didn't send her home. If she was super rich, they probably would have mailed her body back home. Even in 1948, they probably would have. And that's how you find out the timeline. You see her grave. I think she was about 28 when she died. And so he's kind of talking to the grave. He's kind of sorry about what happened to her. And then, he's leaning down, and she comes bursting out of the grave. And he's screaming, like, he's like, oh my gosh, you're alive.
Jesus Christ.
Where am I?
Where are you? Freddie pronounced you dead. We had a funeral.
Dead?
Yeah.
A funeral? Oh, damn, I broke another nail.
And then she immediately, like, kisses him, coming right out of the grave. She's barely even dirty or anything. And she just comes out, and, she looks a little scuffed up, but... So she immediately is like, oh my gosh, I thought I'd never see you again. And she immediately wants to make love right there after bursting out of the grave. And he's like, what? Okay. And so she, like, pulls him back down on near the grave. And he's like, all right, well, I guess she's alive. We'll go ahead and do that. So, So then while this is going on, they shoot back to Psyche, and she's got like a little doll again of his, and she's kind of putting a little, she's just kind of messing with it. So it's like the next morning, or maybe, I don't know, maybe a little time later, probably the next morning. He's kind of been hanging out with Margaret, or he's at least staying the night with Margaret, and they kind of show her face for a second, and she looks like she's got a little bit of skin peeling, or like it's very light. It looks like she just kind of got a blemish, and she's just like, oh no, blemish, He shows back up from whatever he was doing, and she says, oh, I cooked all this food for you, and she's got all this food on the table, and she's like, I'm so glad you're home, and I hope you like all this food.
I hope you like this, because I've been up since the crack of dawn cooking for my little snookum-wookum.
And she's like, I would like to have 5 times a day sex, so you need all your strength. And I was like, geez, 5 times a day? Okay. And so she was just like, yep, sex all day. And so he also notices that there's like a weird smell in the house. And he's like, what is that rotting smell? It smells so gross. He's like, are you okay? You know, and she's like, yeah, I'm fine. But you can tell her face is like a little weathered, you know, and he's just like, okay. And so later that night, I think it's later that night, he's having drinks with Freddie, the doctor. And he tells her, he's like, you know, you're going to be in some trouble there with this. And he's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, you made a huge mistake with Margaret. And he's like, no, I did that in England, and that's why I'm here. So apparently he has been in trouble with stuff. But Logan's like, I don't know how you blew this one, but Margaret's alive. And he's like, what do you mean Margaret's alive? I was there. We buried her. She was very dead. I know a corpse when I see one. And then all of a sudden, from out of the other room in like a red dress comes Margaret, and she's looking very like Dia de los Muertes kind of thing. And she comes out and her face is really bad now. Like the rest of her body's not so bad. She's got her hair to the side, but her face is just really like wrinkled and old and weathered. She comes out, chops the head off of Freddy. His head rolls onto the table. And like I said, she's really decayed. And he's just like, he's not even super worried about Doc's head getting chopped off and rolling across the table. He's more freaked out, I think, by her face. Because I think now he's like, I think he's just more like, oh my gosh, she really is dead and you're still there. And so he's trying to tell her, like, Margaret, you look really bad. And so now he's kind of starting to realize what he did wrong with the curse and with the potion, you know, by putting so many drops in, that she's never going to let him go. She's always going to be following him. So he runs over to the cabinet and grabs a gun. And he's like, get away from me, Margaret. You're dead, you know? And she's really starting to decay fast now. And so he shoots her multiple times and she falls over. And I mean, now he's like, oh my gosh, I killed her, but it's like she was already dead. Like, he doesn't know what's going on. But he's like, wait, she's already dead. So I couldn't have killed her.
Oh my God, I've killed her. Wait a second. I can't have killed her. She's already dead.
Logan, how could you? I just bought this dress.
So she gets back up and you know, he starts running off into the woods and she's chasing after him with like a little lantern, you know, and she's like, come back to me, I love you, you know, and all this stuff. And he's trying to run away, but you know, like I was thinking when he was running, I'm like, that quicksand's gonna come back, I think. And so he falls into the quicksand that he was warned about earlier because it's all over the place. And she pulls him out of the quicksand and she's coming in for like a kiss and she looks really bad now. So yeah, he pushes her back and she falls on the lantern and ends up, you know, she's burning up and she kind of starts to sink into the quicksand. So he runs back inside and now he's like, okay, well maybe I should, you know, what am I gonna do now, you know, and all this stuff. He's like, well, you know, she's probably dead, it's fine, you know, he's drinking some rum. And then she comes like bursting through the door and she's really dead now. And he's like, oh my gosh. Yeah, she bursts in through the window. And he's like, no. And he heads over to Freddy's like apothecary bag is laying on the ground there. And he's going through and he's wanting to take a whole bunch of pills, I guess, to kill himself. And for some reason, the doctor has like a bottle of pills that actually just says poison. And at first I thought it was like liquid, but it's not. It's like little capsules of poison, just says poison. So he's like, sure, I'll take all those. So he starts shoving those down his mouth. He's drinking alcohol, he's drinking all kinds of stuff. And so he passes out. And you're thinking he's dead, right? Well, he wakes up. He's back in Psyche's hut. And he's tied up, laying on her bed. And there's candles lit everywhere. And Psyche's like, yeah, I brought you back. And you're not going to take the easy way out. And so then she says, there's someone here who's just dying to see you. And out comes Margaret, and she's really dead now. Like, she's dirty and gross, and she's just a skeleton. And then she's got this little cage, and in the cage is the head of Freddy, and he's talking too. You know, he's alive. Apparently he's been brought back, just his head though. And he goes, I always said you'd get a head, Logan. I'm like, really? Yeah. And so he's like, no, you know, he's freaking out, he's screaming. So, you know, Margaret wants him for life. And so this part is really gross. So the very end shot is Margaret's face of the skeleton coming toward him. And it's so gross because she's like, she wants to like French kiss him or something, and she's got her tongue hanging out. So it's basically all this bone and then this like writhing, gooey, bulbousy tongue coming at him with the mouth open. And he's just like, no, and her tongue's all just rolled around in her mouth. It's so gross. And he just screams, and then that's the end. So he'll never get rid of her. But yeah, so then it cuts back to the Crypt Keeper. He's still hanging out with the tarantula, and Crypt Keeper, you're so punny. So the best Crypt Keeper pun is,
and how about Maggie? Girls like that are pretty hard to dig up.
oh my gosh, I get it. Dig up. Woo, you're so punny. But anyway, that was the end of the episode. It was a pretty fun one. I mean, it was neat to watch Margaret's, because they really did a good job with her decaying and her facial movements and things as she started to go, like how they moved her face and things like that. So that was it's cool. They always do a great job on a lot of the effects and things on this show. So I mean, that's really neat. And so to see, and the story, he got what was coming to him and things like that. That's basically the episode. There's just like one little trivia thing from IMDb here. The title, Til Death, is a line from the Christian wedding ceremony that implies that the marriage that one is about to enter is a lifelong commitment. So there's kind of a play on that with the lifelong commitment, till death. I mean, yeah, everyone kind of knows that. So next episode will be season 2, episode 5, Three's a Crowd. So, again, thank you for listening to the Good Evening Kitties podcast. You can rate, review, subscribe, like, share, find me on Podbean, Podbase, Stitcher, iTunes. Tell people, but again, thanks for listening.
I just had quite a scare. I actually thought my heart was beating again.